Hi, folks. For those of us who are just joining, we're going to get started in a few minutes, and feel free to use the chat to ask any technical questions or questions about the content throughout the presentation. And since the presentation is broken up into sections, we will address them as we go along at the end of each section, and we'll also have some time at the end for more general questions. Thank you. All right, welcome everybody. We're gonna get started. My name is Marigo Farr and I'm a program manager with Solar One. And this is Solar for Property Managers. I'm gonna give a chance to, for the co-hosts to introduce themselves and then we'll get started. Jose, do you wanna introduce yourself?
Awesome. Thank you, Marigo. My name is Jose Galvez, and I'm also a program manager at Solar One. And very happy to be here with you today. So thank you for joining us. And I will transfer the baton to our colleague, Emily from UHAB.
Emily, you're on mute.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Ng from UHAB, the Urban Homesteading Assistance Board. I'm really glad to be joining you all this morning. Our organization has collaborated with Solar One to connect multifamily building owners with solar adoption, and I'll speak a bit about those buildings and the savings and benefits that they're seeing as a result a little later. Welcome.
All right, let's hit it. So the agenda for today's presentation, I'm going to briefly introduce Solar One. We're going to talk a little bit about solar technology, how you save money with solar, and then particular considerations for property managers, because that's our focus today. And then we're going to review the Here Comes Solar program, how you can benefit from our technical assistance, and we'll have some more time for Q&A at the end. And don't be shy to ask questions along the way. We'll do our best to track them and answer them as we go along. So who's Solar One? We're an environmental education nonprofit established in 2004 with the belief that all New Yorkers can help overcome our environmental challenges. We have a range of different projects, including green workforce, managing a park on the East River, K through 12 green education, and Here Comes Solar. So the status of solar in New York City. The costs of solar have declined dramatically in recent decades, both here and abroad. But New Yorkers still face some particular challenges, including extensive permitting that can take a few months before starting, system complexity for multifamily buildings, so figuring out how many stakeholders can claim benefits and handle the costs. And then the dense urban environment, which just makes it more challenging at times to find buildings that are suitable for solar. So because of that, we launched the Here Comes Solar program. It's an initiative of Solar One. And we provide technical assistance to make this process more streamlined and more affordable. So that includes a site evaluation and solar design, knowledge building, financing and incentive consultation, solar installer selection assistance, and really acting as a consumer advocate throughout the whole process to ensure that you have a successful solar project. So these are some of the clients and partners that we've worked with. You can see that there's a range of market rate and affordable housing, nonprofits, et cetera. And so we're going to pass it off to talk about UHAB, which is one of our partners.
Hi, everyone. So UHAB is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to empower low to moderate income residents to take control of their housing and enhance their communities through strong tenant associations and affordable co-ops. We're proud partners of Solar One on the Co-ops Go Solar campaign for housing development fund corporations, known as HDFCs, which are affordable limited equity cooperatives, to connect them to solar options. So let's talk about why solar is important in our New York City community. Buildings account for 70% of New York City's greenhouse gas emissions. So the potential to reduce energy usage and therefore emissions through options like solar and other energy efficient technologies will help to reduce those emissions through, and also lower expenses. New York City's Climate Mobilization Act put a price on carbon and requires solar on new construction projects. So we've seen local laws like Local Law 92 to put green roofs or solar on buildings. Local Law 94 have green roofs and solar on new construction. Local Law 97 to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by the year 2050. And more buildings over time will need to be in compliance and adhering to these energy codes. Solar benefits New York City's old constrained grid, and it's really crucial to look at and adopt solar to offset and support the grid. When electricity is produced close to home, it's beneficial to the utility companies to have that produced locally and not to have to travel far distances, which also reduces the need for peaker plants that release high amounts of pollution. Solar power reduces building operating expenses. So between short payback periods and high lifetime savings, this means that it's really cost effective, which is a big bonus. And solar is a fast growing sector in New York, allowing economic opportunities to develop green jobs. So I'll pass it back to Solar One, and Jose will talk about solar technology.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Just a quick reminder again, if you have any questions at the end of any section, please put them on the chat. But we will start with what solar technology is. So solar energy, how does solar work? So imagine the sun is just, producing its own, its own heat, and those are in the photons from the sun are turned into electricity by the solar panels through the photovoltaic cells. So that electricity being produced by the solar panels, it's called what we think of direct current energy that is converted by an inverter, which is right here in the it's placed either on the roof if you are in a New York City building, you would be placing this inverter either on your roof or on your electric room system, which then converts that electricity to alternative current. When that electricity is converted to alternative current, is sent back to the grid. And this is what we call net metering. When this electricity is sent back to the grid, then the utility company takes all of that electricity produced and will credit it back to your bill. It's basically like a bank. So it becomes that all the electricity produced by the solar system on top of your roof goes back to the grid. And then Con Edison, in this case in New York City, would then credit the electricity to you. And that's how you will see the savings from the solar system that you installed on your roof. And the two main parts of a solar energy systems are the solar panels and the inverter. So how do we measure the solar energy capacity? So a solar energy system's capacity is the amount of power that the system would produce in an ideal condition. So basically, we think if we put this amount of panels on top of the roof, in an ideal world, this is the electricity that would be produced by that system. So it's measured in watts, just like a light bulb. But in terms of multifamily solar arrays, or like what we see it in New York City buildings, to keep it simple, we convert those watts into kilowatts. So anything that it would be 15,000, let's say, watts, we would refer to it as 15 kilowatts. Or if it's 50,000 watts, we would refer to it as 50 kilowatts. In New York City, that is the range actually of solar systems that could be placed in your roof, or that's like what the average. But we have systems that can range anywhere from 15 all the way to 130. Measuring the solar energy. So over time, solar installations produce energy, which is measuring kilowatt hours, as we just said. And we pay, which is measuring kilowatt hours, and that we pay that kilowatt hours of electricity to the utility. So the utility will be charging you by the electricity produced by those solar panels. And producing that kilowatt hours of solar energy can offset the need to purchase kilowatt hours from the utility. So whatever you're producing by the system on your roof basically will be credited to the utility company, and that will offset your bill. The life of solar panels. Solar panels come with a lifetime warranty of 25 years in operating life. So that means that the manufacturer of the solar panels is responsible for replacing any panel that was not working well, and they will be the ones that will have to be giving you a new panel with the same efficiency at least, or similar or comparable to what you had purchased originally. Usually it will be the solar installer who will come and replace that panel for you. Solar panels are really, really low maintenance. They don't require much work. Once you install the system, they are just placed on your roof, or they're placed or anchor in a steady position, and they take care of themselves. So when it rains, the solar panels are cleaning themselves. When it snows, the solar panels tend to also clean themselves with the snow. The solar panels are usually dark by nature. So when it does snow, the snow will tend to melt away, and that will do the work of cleaning the panels. We do recommend property managers or the supers of each building to at least check once or twice a year the solar energy system to make sure that the solar panels are working fine. But other than that, they don't require much work once installed. Solar energy does require direct sunlight. So it's naturally that if they are using electricity from the sun, that we don't want the panels to have any type of shade that will create any problem in reducing the efficiency of the energy production of that solar panel. So when we do the designs here at Solar One, or when you're trying to install an installation, you must be aware of any obstruction that can produce a shade to your solar energy system. In New York City, in order to have solar energy technology, what makes much more sense is to connect them to the grid. So this means that because you're not having a battery backup in your building, or that we don't recommend it as of now because of the technology still developing and it's a little bit expensive, we say connect it to the grid, and that's how you get the most out of your return. But because they are grid connected, if there is a shutdown, that doesn't mean that because you just have installed a solar energy system on top of your roof, that you will still have electricity when there is a shutdown. Just like when there is a shutdown and you have a solar system that is grid connected, you will also lose electricity. And it is not because your solar energy system is not working, but rather is because the utility company wants to make sure that the workers, when they're working on the lines, are not putting in hazardous position. So the second part of the solar energy system that really matters is the inverters. And the inverters is something that will be replaced at somewhere around 10 to 15 years of the lifetime of the solar energy system. And it's something that you should consider when you are considering a solar installation on top of your roof. There are two types of inverters, the string inverters, which are the two big ones that you will see that you see here on the screen. And those ones basically are either placed on your basement or where the electric room is, or they are placed close to the solar energy system. Those are just basically still gonna convert the direct current to alternating current that will be used transferred to the grid. But there is another type of inverter that makes the solar energy system even more efficient, which is what we know as microinverters. And microinverters are strings that are stringed to each single solar panel. So it means that in case that you were to have shade in one of the solar panels, what will happen is that you will be maximizing efficiency of each individual panel rather than the system as a whole. So if you had shade in one panel, you will still be producing electricity by the rest instead of like having to reduce the efficiency of the system as a whole. Microinverters, the costs have come down. They tend to be more expensive than string inverters, but the costs have come down, and there's also ways to go around this through other solar energy technology that has emerged. When we think about solar energy, there are two types of mounting system, two primary methods, the ballasted system and the mechanically integrated. One of the most common here in New York City is the ballasted system. The ballasted system is that system in which there are no penetrations, no perforation on top of your roof, and the panels are basically held in place with cinder blocks, and they can withstand up to 110 miles per hour wind. So that's something that you should be aware of. You won't have to worry about your solar panels moving if there is like high winds or so. Usually that's what these systems can require, and they're very common in New York City. They tend to be at the lower end of the spectrum because they don't require any mounting or structure to place them or keep them in place. So they are just placed there, very easy to install, and then they start producing electricity. Ballasted installations work best when you have large roof and you can place many of them, because they do require to have some separation between each row, just in order for them not to get shade, the one row shade the other. So large roof ballasted installation is something that works really, really well with solar. The second type of mounting system is the mechanically integrated. This one is divided in two parts. The planar array, which is the second one that you see right here. And the planar array, basically, it is attached to the roof. There is some penetration that goes in to make sure that the system is held in place. But the great thing about a planar array is that you can maximize energy by putting panels closer to each other without having to have that separation in between the rows. And it tends to work for small or moderate sized roofs that want to make the most out of their solar energy capacity on their roof. The good thing about planar arrays too is that if you have structures on top of your roof, you can work around them, because they tend to go close to the ground at first, but then they elevate themselves at an angle, which you can do when you have structures underneath your roof, and they can go below the solar panel system. The other type of mounted installation is the canopy system. Canopy systems are becoming more and more popular here in New York City, because a lot of the buildings either have small roof spaces and they want solar, and they also want to install sometimes green roof, or make sure that they have a deck on their roof. And these type of systems are really good for some very small roof in New York City, and they are raised anywhere 9 feet or higher above the roof. They can cover the entire roof area. One thing that we should know about New York City or New York City Fire Department laws is that we are required to have 6 feet for landing space on the front of the building, and 6 feet from front to back of the building. So when you have a canopy system, that you basically continue to have that 6 feet from the front to back of the building, and also from the front of the building, because you already have that space, because the canopy system is raised above, and then the fire department can have a landing spot. However, in the ballasted installation, you must make sure to keep that regulation intact, and that you have that space in between the building, front and back, and also from the front part, because you want that access for the fire department. So canopy installations are really good if you want to maximize the solar capacity, the solar production. At the same time, if you want to maximize the use of your roof and have solar energy installed on it. So determining solar viability for your building. So what makes a building a strong candidate for solar? Direct sunlight is one of the is the first thing. Southern exposure is really what we would say, but in New York City, if you have eastern and western exposure, not so much northern, you will still be able to be a good candidate for solar energy. But facing south is best. Roof with an open area or minimal obstruction, so vents, skylights, and HVACs, all of those can produce shade, unless that you are having a stringly attached system where there is a string inverters. Then you may be able to go with not with like having vents and skylights that can create some shade, because you're still maximizing the efficiency through the other panels. But we recommend that you try to keep, that when we do designs or when we think about a solar energy system, we want to make sure that all of this that there are minimal obstructions, basically. New roof. This is something and a big question that always comes up for us when we think about solar energy work. They ask us like, I am about to replace my roof. Could I install a solar energy system right now? We usually recommend that if you're going to install a new roof, to go ahead and install your new roof and then install the solar energy system. The solar energy system comes with a 25-year warranty, but what we say is that if you need to do roof work, then you may have to remove the solar energy system in order to do the roof work and then come back and do and then reinstall the system. So new roof and solar energy work best together, unless if you have a canopy system with which you can still work around the roof while the solar energy system is raised above it. So this is a small viability quiz, and we would love if you guys can put your answers in the chat and tell us like, what is it that you think about this building right here, whether or not is a good fit for solar. So this building is in the Lower East Side. It's a 5-story walk-up. The roof is about 4 years old, and the area is 1,300 square feet. So do you guys think that this would be a good solar energy?
And if you don't have a yes, no answer, just add any considerations that you're thinking about in the chat.
A good solar candidate? Okay. I guess I see no chat so far, but so this building right here, just to be clear, this building right here would not be so much of a good solar candidate. Okay, Nicholas says yes. Okay, Nicholas, it does look like it could be, in the sense that there is like a space and you could put a canopy system. But if you look at here, there is a shaded area in the that would create some shade for this little building right here. So it wouldn't be as a good solar candidate. There is a big shade coming from the northern part of the building. Next one. What about this building? This one is in Brooklyn Heights. It's an 8-story elevator building, 12-year-old roof, and it's about 1,600 square feet. As you can see, there is the whole roof, and there are some structures here. There's a large space here, maybe, possibly, or what do you guys think? Okay, so roof evaluation is required for this one. The building is already 12 years old. There's a little bit of obstruction here. We need to see whether this bulkhead would create some shade. So there will be some evaluation required. It may be or it may not be that it is fit for solar. Perhaps a planar installation could be going there, or a canopy system, but it does require some assessment. This building right here, what do you guys think? This one is a neighborhood in Washington Heights. It's a 6-story pre-war elevator building, 2 years old, and 4,000 square feet. There's like barely any obstruction. It's really good space. It has all the characteristics of a good solar candidate. So as you can see, there is like a design that we would think of when we would work, when you work with us with Solar One or an installer. This is something that they would make sure to do for you, make sure that all the obstructions are taken into account when they're designing their solar energy system installation. So any questions for us about solar energy technology?
I don't have a question, but I would like to add one thing. When Jose was talking before about was showing the image of the building and the electricity exporting, in case you've heard of a few different ways that your bill can be credited for solar, just wanted to point out that, so the scenario that Jose was speaking of is sometimes you can install an export meter. The solar goes to the grid and the utility compensates you monetarily. So it shows up as a monetary adjustment on your bill. But you can actually do something called behind the meter or net metering, where you're consuming the electricity generated whenever it is being generated. And that in that scenario, it's simply that you're not having to purchase as many kilowatt hours from the utility. In the end, you benefit either way, depending on which route you take. And part of our services is that we help you figure out sort of the best metering arrangement for your building. And we can show you how it would actually show up on your Con Ed bill.
Awesome. I don't think we have any questions for this section, right? We're good?
I think we're good.
Awesome. So we'll continue. Please make sure to ask any questions. And if you have any questions on solar technology, please make sure to put them there and we'll answer them as we continue with the presentation. But now we will move on and speak about saving money with solar.
All right. Thanks, Jose. So we're going to talk about saving solar. Awesome. So how much does solar actually cost? We talk about costs in $1 per watt. And so you'll hear that as sort of the industry term. And pricing is influenced by a range of different things. You'll see the price per watt increase if you have a smaller system because there are fixed costs that the installer has to cover. So the price per unit ends up being more when you have a smaller system. There's mechanically integrated systems that are more costly to ensure that they're sealed properly and that the roof warranty is continued. Taller buildings are more expensive because there's a greater distance where you have to run conduit from the roof to the electricity room, which is expensive, and sometimes it requires cranes once you get to a certain building height, cranes for the installation. And then, as Jose mentioned, canopies or pergola arrays are more costly because they require a little more engineering and more material than the larger system. So the price per watt decreases when you either install a larger system or a ballasted installation, which is usually the most simple approach, or bulk procurement. So if there are many buildings that you're working with and you propose solar to arrange with your clients and coordinate for them to go solar all together, we see really good discount pricing when installers bid on multi-building portfolios. So this is a table that shows average solar costs in New York City in 2019. And you can see that as the system size gets larger, the price per watt in the right-hand column goes down. And so what that might look like for, say, a 30 kilowatt multifamily installation, which we might say is like an average project that we would work on for one building. You would measure 30,000 watts times $4 a watt might be an average range for a mechanically integrated system. And then you see your total budget, 120,000. Now that may look a little steep. And so in the next slides, we're going to talk about how that cost gets reduced. So solar economics, you save money in two ways. There's the utility bill savings and there's the tax bill savings. So there's also two different approaches in a multifamily building for what you're going to target to offset offset your electricity bill. So there's the common area approach where the solar offsets like the common area lights, the laundry room, elevators, any AC that's in the main part of the building. And then there's the scenario where you split the energy credits generated from solar power amongst the residential electricity bills with something called on-site community shared solar. You may have heard of community shared solar in general. There's off-site projects, but you can also do it on-site within your building. And that may be, is only available for certain buildings with certain criteria met. And then keeping in mind that as a building might electrify, the owner paid electric bills for the common area might increase dramatically. So solar is a really good way to address that. So this is a look at the tax bill savings that are available and also one incentive that's not related to tax bills. So looking on the left-hand side, you see your total system cost is X amount. And the New York Sun incentive is a rebate through NYSERDA, which is a state agency. And the installer is responsible for applying for that rebate and passing on 100% of the savings to the client. So right up front, your project cost is reduced by about 15 to 30%. So your upfront payment is lower. And then after that, there are a range of tax incentives available for New York City buildings. There's a federal investment tax credit, which is worth 26% of the upfront cost. There's the New York City property tax abatement there. And then what is not actually listed here is also the state income tax credit, which functions similarly to the federal investment tax credit. And so you can see after you've applied the incentives here that they actually cover a majority of your cost. And just a few notes about incentives. So the ITC, the federal investment tax credit, or sometimes just referred as the federal income tax credit, is set to drop to 22% next year. And so a lot of buildings are trying to mobilize for solar this year so they can claim this year's levels, and then it'll drop to 10% in 2022. So a lot of these incentives are not permanent, or not permanent at least at the levels that they're at. And also for like commercial properties, multifamily rentals, solar is also eligible for accelerated depreciation of assets, including 100% year one bonus depreciation at the federal level. Also, some buildings are eligible for low-income housing tax credits, so for affordable housing, and that can be combined with other incentives. So here's a little chart that just shows you for certain kinds of buildings, which of these incentives you can claim. So we work with a lot of owner-occupied co-ops and condos. The income tax credits are actually distributed to the shareholders, which is what we mean by some of the multifamily building system complexity. For-profit rentals, they're able to claim a slightly different suite of incentives. And then for nonprofits, sometimes it can be tricky. A bunch of the incentives are not available, so we have to use some more strategic ways to make sure the projects are economically viable. So these cash flows give you a sense of how the payback period of a system can be influenced by claiming tax credits or not claiming tax credits. So on the left-hand side, this would be a project where within the first few years, you're able to successfully claim all the tax incentives, and you also get the basically guaranteed rebate. And you start saving on your electricity bill also within the first year. So within 3-4 years, you're able to pay back the whole cost of the system and save save on your electricity bill for the rest of the lifetime. The reason that you see it increase every year is because we assume a rate escalator because of the rising cost of electricity. So the value of solar would also increase mostly in accordance with that. And then on the right side, this is a scenario where you're excluding tax credits. And because of that, the payback period is slightly longer. But still, with offsetting electricity, you're able to pay back the period within a pretty reasonable time frame and then still benefit for the majority of the lifetime of the system from generating free electricity. So here's an example of getting a little bit more specifically into solar project economics. This is a project in Harlem that Solar One has been supporting. It's an HDFC co-op. And you can see some of the details on the side. It's about a 40 kilowatt system. The price per watt, $3.40 a watt. And the payback here is 4 years, and the IRR is 17%. So that's pretty great. Lifetime net savings of $236,000. In this scenario, it's offsetting the common area of the building. This is an example of a market rate building. It's a multifamily rental. So all the benefits are going to accrue to one owner, and it's in Brooklyn. It is much larger, 121 kilowatts. So therefore the price per watt is much lower, as we discussed. Really good economics. It's a ballasted installation. And the owner is offsetting electricity costs for the common area, but also distributing a portion of the electricity credits to the individual units. So here is a little bit more granular of a cash flow, just so you get a sense of how all the pieces come together. You have your total installed cost at the top. Then you can see that the New York Sun incentive is applied, and so that your upfront cost to the installer is actually only $291,000. These are the credits, a set of incentives that can be claimed for the commercial property, which is the one in this scenario. And after all the credits are successfully claimed, you can see that your post-incentive cost is down to $70,000. Some things to note here are just that some of the tax incentives are constructed in such a way that you have to claim them over a certain amount of years, so they're split out, and that's why in year one you haven't really gotten as close to recouping the cost, but within a few years you have. And then a few other things to note here. The avoided cost of electricity, as we mentioned before, it goes up over time. Also, you can see the inverter replacement column. That number in the red there is for the anticipation that the inverter won't last as long as the solar panels do, which is typical. So we anticipate having an expense roughly halfway through the lifetime of the system. And usually that expense is sort of in roughly around the amount of electricity you would save in a year, just to give you a sense of the scale of that expense. So how do we pay for solar? We split out the options into two categories, and this is what our financing consultation really looks like. So there's the cash purchase where there'd be direct ownership of the system, and there's also the option for third-party ownership. So we're gonna split them out for you now. So cash purchase, if a building has reserves or has an existing line of credit, you can buy the system outright. And ownership typically provides the greatest long-term financial savings, especially if the owner can benefit from all the tax credits and is the sole recipient of the electricity savings. So in terms of lifetime net benefit and IRR and all of that, this is often the greatest investment if you are able to claim all the incentives. Some buildings are not able to claim all the incentives through either not having a federal or state income tax liability, or having an existing property tax abatement, which can't be combined with the solar property tax abatement, a bunch of different scenarios that we would help you identify. But in that case, sometimes the best option is to have a third-party owned system. The other benefit of a third-party owned system is that it's zero down. So what that looks like is that a solar company would own and install the system on your roof. So you're taking advantage of your roof space for solar, and they would generate the electricity. They would own the electricity generated, but they would sell it to you at a discounted price throughout the lifetime of the system. So you would save money on your electricity bill by being in this arrangement, but not quite as much as if you owned the system yourself. But some of the value of the tax credits that third-party company can claim is basically indirectly getting passed on to you through discounted electricity. So it's a way to sort of indirectly benefit from those incentives, even if you can't take all of them yourself. So we would call, the arrangement I'm describing is a power purchase agreement, but also community solar. If you were to subscribe to an offsite community solar project, that's another kind of more simplified way of saving money on your bill, but that would not be a system on your own roof. All right, so any questions on solar economics? I know I threw out a lot of numbers and concepts there.
We have one question in the chat from Francois. What is the assumption of inflation of electricity rates?
That's a great question. So for our analysis, we typically use about a 3% assumption for the inflation of the price of electricity purchasing from Con Edison. There's a few scenarios in which we would assume a more conservative inflation rate, which is the scenario where you're exporting solar to the grid and you're getting compensated monetarily from Con Ed. There's a bit of a different calculation for how the compensation value in that scenario would increase over time. So there's kind of a range. So I would say 1% to 3% is the escalator we most commonly use.
If there are any other questions, please go ahead and type them into the chat section.
Yeah, and if you think of something as you go along, we can also return to this subject at the end. All right, so I'm going to pass it on to Emily now.
Great, thanks, Marigo. So I'll talk about UHEB's partnership with Solar One on the Co-op Solar campaign. Co-op Solar offers support to HDFC cooperatives. These buildings range from 3 to more than 100 units. And of course, with the cooperative structure, there are many owners and decision makers involved. So we provide assessments, cost estimates, and technical assistance throughout the process with owners, stakeholders, so that everyone's informed and can make a decision on whether or not to proceed with solar. And through Co-op Solar, we have 28 HDFC co-ops who have committed to solar installations. About a third of them have systems that are up and running already, which is very exciting. We are reducing 11,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere through 522 kilowatt DC of solar power generated, bringing more than $5 million of savings over the lifetime of the panels to 970 families. And these numbers are just growing as more buildings sign up. These families and these buildings have varying financial situations and needs. So whether a building has healthy reserves or has limited funds for capital improvements and efficiency projects, I'm glad to say that these buildings were able to adopt solar projects despite barriers related to capital and access to capital. So that is a very good sign for buildings in your management portfolios and building owners throughout New York City. We are using tools such as the power purchase agreement, green lending options to really accomplish and put solar on the roof of these buildings. So we'll take a look now at a few buildings in particular who'd installed solar arrays through Co-op Solar. So 838 Park Place is an 8-unit building in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. You can see in the image that they have a canopy array, which allows residents to use the roof. This system is actually a hybrid system. If you look towards the sort of the right, top right of the image, the hybrid system has canopy with a planar system at the front of the building, allowing them to have panels that are not visible from the street so they can adhere to codes of the historic district that they are in. This system was sized to enable a community solar system, which allows for offsets of the common area electric usage, as well as partial offsets of the individual shareholders' in-unit electric bills. So residents and shareholders there are very happy with this arrangement. They had a 2-year payback for their system, and ultimately they will see $224,824 in savings for the building and the shareholders over the panel's lifetime. Next, we'll look at 239 East 2nd Street in the Lower East Side. This is a smaller 7-unit building with limited space. They have a planar array that is anchored into the building and has angled panels. You can see the approximate height of the angle and angle of the panels based on the people standing next to them. This is a smaller system. It takes a smaller amount of space on the limited roof space. And in their building, it's offsetting 100% of the common area usage. So that covers the laundry room, the hallway lights, their water pump. And ultimately, shareholders will see $55,000 in savings over the panel's lifetime. The last building we'll look at is 470 Convent Avenue in Harlem. This is one of our most recent installations. This building has a 0-degree ballasted array. So you can see the panels are sitting flat on the roof. And as Jose mentioned, like there's no penetration into the roof. This is a landmark building. So while they have to go through additional landmark reviewing and permitting, they are eligible for landmark tax breaks. And ultimately, they will see $124,069 in savings for the building's common area charges over the panel's lifetime. Now, beyond the solar panel that's generated and offset to electricity bills and the overall cost savings, we're seeing many happy shareholders. They're telling us about the benefits that they're enjoying. Many like the added value to their building and having something that really makes their co-op a green building, and they see the solar panels as a great investment. Of course, with lower operating costs, we have happier residents because it frees up monies that allow them to do other projects in the building. We try to time lighting projects to reduce the overall electric load and optimize the power of the solar panels. And in many cases, the long-term continuous savings means that the shareholders and building owners can do additional projects. They can find the funds for the projects they've always wanted to do, or maybe have been putting off. So timing of roof repairs puts to rest something that worries many shareholders and board members. We've been able to address roof work that maybe had been on the back burner or causing worry and stress. And even working together on the projects has brought community pride. It's allowed residents to be engaged in a really positive way. So for stakeholders like UHAB and property managers, that's a great example of how we can work together with building owners. And in planning for solar projects and making decisions around capital planning, it allows everyone to get ahead of the physical building upgrades, which gets them off to a good start with complying with local energy codes and some of the new codes like Local Law 97, Local Laws 92 and 94. It's been really positive for our community. People are very happy. They're opening their doors for tours so that other building owners can see, you know, the panels for themselves. And we are all working together to build a more energy efficient New York. So it's very exciting. I'm now going to pass it back to Jose, and we'll talk about how we may all work together on solar projects.
Awesome. So now then this section is about consideration for property managers, but I do want to remind that please keep asking any questions that you may have, and we will do our best to respond them at the end of this conversation. So these are some questions that we're posing that we would like for people, for property managers to keep in mind, but I will do a more of a conversation between Emily, Marigo, and I in terms of what solar strategies we can try to implement as we are thinking about going solar. So Marigo or Emily, as a property manager with limited experience, how can I ensure my clients will have a successful solar project? Do you both have any thoughts on that from that perspective?
Well, we have one answer to this question, which is that we really encourage you to reach out to us because it can be challenging to move solar forward if there are people with limited solar experience. And what we really care about is making the project smooth. We offer a lot of free upfront services to determine whether or not your building's a good candidate and whether or not you'd have good economics with the project. And then for affordable buildings, we support you the whole way through with no cost. And for market rate buildings, we charge a nominal fee. So really a great place to start out is just by talking to us.
So Emily, in your experience working with property managers with limited solar experience, how can they ensure their clients to have a successful project?
Yeah, I think the key is with communication and staying in touch with folks, like resources like the Here Comes Solar team at Solar One have been an immense help. And you know, for the property managers we've worked with, just having that communication with as many shareholders and people in the building really makes for that community buy-in. Even though, you know, it may be the board that's making certain decisions or property managers making certain decisions, like that communication between all parties in the buildings that we've seen like have been really successful, had more communication on that.
Awesome. And that leads me to my next question, Emily. I think it would just be natural for you to respond, and Marigo, please pitch in. How will solar benefit my clients in terms of compliance with Local Law 97?
Yeah, this is a great question. This is on a lot of building owners' minds as these energy codes are now in effect. What we're seeing is, you know, solar is one of many energy efficiency upgrades that can be done within a building to reduce energy usage and to comply with the codes in the Climate Mobilization Act, which all focus and target on target energy efficiency and reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. And so, you know, by installing solar, by working on the roof, like when we time the roof work, we often look at roof insulation, which also will increase the efficiency of the building. We're looking at reducing the electric load through lighting upgrades. And it's also a great time to just take care of a lot of the, you know, low-hanging fruit measures of air sealing. And so I think really combined, like solar brings significant energy savings, and coupled with many other types of efficiency projects. Like people will really be ahead of that curve of compliance with the codes. And, that process of the larger buildings doing benchmarking, like it will get calculated and result in better scores for the buildings when they have to post those grades.
Amazing. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah.
Go ahead, America.
Just wanted to add that some people ask if I do solar now, will it not help me later in terms of the compliance with this law? And I just want to say it does count now. Ultimately, it matters what your building's emissions are per square feet. So having green energy installed at any time, either in advance, does help. And it's sort of a way to get ahead of the curve when incentives are still really great. And to avoid getting to the place where you might have more penalties than you otherwise would have in years to come.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And I think you both addressed the third question, which is, about that being nervous about making capital improvements due to New York recent rent regulation and broader financial situation. So why should I even consider solar? We say, it improves the energy efficiency of your building. It does bring it adds value to your property itself. At the same time, you're reducing the amount of energy that electricity bill cost that you would be paying to your utility company, which allows you to free up some money that will help you invest in other areas that your building needs some support. But I don't know if you two want to add anything else beyond. So if not, we can move on to the next set of questions.
Yeah, I will say that cost is the most daunting factor when we first start talking to building owners about solar. But in looking at the estimates and looking at the tax incentives and the NYSERDA, New York Sun incentives, like the ways that we can actually reduce that cost, it is the best time to actually take advantage of those available financing resources and really make it cost effective. And so while people are really wondering about the financials in the beginning, we have almost 30 buildings where folks have made that decision and are really happy with the way that between the payback and the savings over time, like it's a great investment for them that brings additional benefits. And so it may cost just, like for what they are investing, they will make that back, multiple times over. So I think if there are concerns about that financial situation, the HDFC cooperatives with their barriers to capital and access to capital have been able to make that happen. So I think that's a really good case for any building owner really being able to adopt solar.
Awesome. So solar in New York has a great return on investment for what it seems like. Then let's.
And I'll also add.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, in terms of just like communicating to your client on whether it's a multifamily, like a single owner for a rental building or a co-op or a condo, I think it's just important to frame the project as not your typical capital improvement. So it's not an aesthetic thing. It's not even something that is like required that you sort of have to do to meet code, but it's something that generates positive outcomes over time, which is actually pretty rare. There's very few kinds of capital improvements that actually help you make money over time, as opposed to just needing to sink money because it's required. And for rental buildings with limited opportunities to actually increase money coming in, decreasing your operating costs is really the only way to improve your financial situation.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Then the project timing. This is more about when is it the right time to proceed with a solar project, and what are the risks of moving ahead now, and what are the risks of waiting? Marigo, do you have any thoughts on project timing as a program manager of solar projects yourself?
Sure. One of the questions that we get about the risks of moving ahead now are just that some people are interested in learning more about the possibilities for solar panel efficiency to increase more over time. We've seen the efficiency kind of level out in terms of sort of marginal improvements in the technology over the past bunch of years, but the technology has been pretty similar for a long time. And, you know, even if it continues to increase, we don't encourage waiting for a number of reasons. One is because the incentives, some of them are going to sunset, and that's a much greater impact on the project economics than sort of a negligible increase in energy production from higher efficiency panels. But also, you know, at some point down the line, when your project is sort of nearing the end of its lifetime in a few decades, then you have a natural sort of opportunity to replace your system with what is the most current technology of that time. So that's kind of the way I like to think of it. So the risks of waiting are losing the incentives, and also the penalties that could come down the line for you with the Climate Mobilization Act.
Emily, would you like to say anything on that end, on that note?
Yeah, there's never a bad time to start considering solar, and particularly with you know, having multiple stakeholders, we found that you know, when folks have started those conversations within the building, sometimes if they have other work that needs to be done, like they're able to fold in the solar project with that work. And so the timing, like the earlier they can get started with that conversation, the more and better they can do that longer term planning. And for the co-ops that we've worked with who've applied for loans, such as the Green Housing Preservation Program or Habitat's Community Loan Fund, you know, the timing, like they were able to really pace themselves with making that decision and applying for the funding and making a plan that would bring larger scale benefits to the building. So it's
Awesome.
never a bad moment to get started.
Awesome, thank you. And I believe I did answer the second question on project timing about roof replacement, which is my client has a roof replacement coming up. Should they proceed with solar at the same time or wait until the roof is complete? We would say that always solar and roof, when there's a new roof and a new installation, that's when it works best. So if you're planning to do roof replacement, by all means, go ahead, do the roof replacement, and then proceed with the solar installations. You can move around that if you were to have like a canopy system where you can still work underneath, like you can still work on the roof while you have a system that is raised above above the roof itself. But if you're gonna do some roof replacement, please replace the roof, and then you can go ahead with the solar system. I don't know if Marigo or Emily have seen any projects that were going through this process and what your experience was with buildings that were considering roof replacement and a solar installation at the same time.
Yeah, and there actually is a question in the chat about roofs. So the question was, does a raised solar system make it easier to redo the roof in subsequent years? For example, you don't need to move the ballasted system. And then the second question is, does solar decrease roof lifespan or possibly increase lifespan? And there's an additional question about benefits, tax benefits. So we have seen buildings, co-op buildings that had to plan for roof repair in the best case scenario. I think, you know, replacing the roof, for those buildings that replaced the roof completely, it was perfect timing to then install solar, so that the life of the roof and the life of the panels like really works out very well. There are other buildings that had smaller repairs that had to be done, and a canopy system can allow for those repairs to be done, but a ballasted system is perfectly fine for repairs because the panels can just be, you know, picked up and moved as needed. And so in planning these projects, I think the emphasis is more on the planning and coordination. But if you know that roof work has to be done, you know, it's better to have that communication between the roof company and the solar installer and Solar One, just to be coordinating and considering the options, because, you know, certainly roof warranties and repair warranties are something that, you know, you want to just have good communication on what the terms are. So
yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, just Jose and Marigo, if you want to take some of
Yeah,
this.
just to add on to that, if you're planning on replacing your roof, you know, this year or in the fall or whatever, there's no need to wait on getting started on the solar project. I mean, you will wait to install the solar after the roof is completed, but it can take a fair amount of time to sort of pre-develop the solar project, go out to bid, select your installer, contract negotiations. Then the installer has to, submit to the DOB, the building design, and all that can take many months. So it's actually the perfect time to start solar if you're gearing up for a roof replacement. And then also when the roof is being torn off and maybe photos are being taken of the exposed structure, those are really great things to keep and to be able to show the installer so that the installer has the best sense of the structural sort of makeup of the roof. And so there can be a little bit of coordination between the roofing the contractor and the installer to ensure a good solar project when the roof is complete.
Awesome.
And regarding the question about whether solar decreases or increases the lifespan of the roof, I think, in many respects, the solar panels offer another level of protection on the roof. So from what we've seen, it really does help to increase the lifespan of the roof. And in terms of tax benefits for roof replacement costs associated with installing solar, Jose or Marigo, do you know about tax incentives for
Yeah, for sure. So the tax incentives are, the way they're written is that they're really supposed to apply to the solar energy producing equipment. So that's the panels, the inverters, the racking. So, there are some companies who are kind of an all-in-one company where they do roof work and solar installation and kind of do it all in conjunction, who maybe believe that you can kind of lump it all together in one sum and have been successful with that. So it's really a little bit gray at times, and we're not a tax, we're not an accountant, we're not a lawyer. So I think really the best thing to do is just talk to your installer and talk to your accountant and kind of figure out your preferred approach. But
Yeah,
just to say that, there's not really directly tax benefits associated with roof replacement.
Awesome. And if you are considering getting a loan to do a roof replacement, it's a good time to also pair it with, a solar installation if you're going through that whole process, because then you can get a loan that will cover both costs, and then the payback period, will ultimately assist you to do it quicker and also to have a solar installation and a new roof. So these are some other questions that we put here for property managers to consider and to have it in the back of their heads, like when they're thinking about solar energy and proposing it to the clients that you manage buildings for. So who from the building or management company is reviewing the solar installation contract? That would typically be something that we would consider. If the company has their own lawyers, they would be in communication with the solar installer in reviewing the contract, or the board themselves, whoever is like a responsible party for that building, they would be the ones that would be doing the revision of the contract. Here Comes Solar, we are committed to supporting all of the buildings that we work with, and we assist in helping them guide them in what it is a fair contract. But we, as Marigo said, we are not lawyers nor accountant ourselves, but we do have some technical knowledge about the types of panels, the installation, the systems, the designs, that we can help you in that revision process. But ultimately, it has to be somebody who is a legal representative of the building to do that revision. There are other questions such as what are the building's requirements regarding methods of site access, work hours, and final solar design approval. Marigo, do you want to chime in on that one?
Yeah, mostly just that, the answers to these questions are kind of specific to your own building. We just wanted to alert you to them as something to think about, really having thorough communication with the board or the owner about who's going to really make the final call and who might be the contact with the installation company for opening up the building during times of construction and stuff like that. And there are definitely some ways that we can support as the project gets launched. And actually, sometimes we offer sort of consulting even after the installation to support some kinds of ongoing project management questions.
Awesome. And then there's like another question about who from the building or management company is overseeing the solar project from contractor selection through completion. At Here Comes Solar, we help you. If you were to work with us, we will help you do the contracting selection. So we will guide you through the process of what that would look like depending on the bids that we receive for your project. And we are there all the way to help you through completion. And usually we tend to work with either board members from that from a co-op, or a board member from a condo, or the property managers themselves. Property managers are in deep communication with us in terms of the buildings that we have helped gone solar. Marigo works pretty closely with many of these property managers. So there is a lot of experience there. So I don't know if you want to add on into that question, Marigo, a little bit.
I think we should probably move to the next slide.
Okay.
But yeah, we're happy to talk more about this, for your building specifically.
Yep. And then there is questions on operations and maintenance about the solar panels, about just how the solar, who is responsible for maintaining the panels over the warranty time. So usually it is the solar installer who will give you a workmanship warranty that will help you make sure that your panels and your system is working well. There tends to be a monitoring system that you can look at the solar performance, and that is usually reviewed by whoever is in charge of the building's management, and you can just be tracking if your energy production is going well and how much it produces over over a year or so, and the electricity that you are offsetting. And then if you have any procedures of reporting that you would like to report about, if the solar performance is not working well, you work with the solar company that installed your panels. They will be the ones who are most likely to help you and assist you with that. And as I say, they do provide a workmanship warranty, which lasts anywhere between 5 is the minimum, and then some range from 10 to 15, but 10 will be a really good one to consider. And just to chat about, again, remind us about our Here Comes Solar model from Solar One. What we do
Actually, can I just pause you there? We have a good question coming in sort of related to that topic. So the question is, does solar increase the workload of the management companies? Does this increase the work of the super? So yeah, so basically, if your building is sort of, if there's, solar doesn't require a lot of management, and with the performance monitoring that Jose was mentioning, it's possible to set the settings so that you have alerts if there's any kind of extreme production failure, so that you would basically be notified if it seemed like a whole section of panels were out, or if there's any kind of issue. We, as Jose mentioned earlier, we do recommend someone from the building sort of checking on the system at least annually or semi-annually, to sort of make sure that nothing looks astray, or that there's no kind of animal interference. Some companies, so if you're the type of property manager or a building who really wants to be very thorough about what the plan is for long-term management, there are some O&M contracts that you can have with the same installer to extend their support beyond the workmanship warranty time period. Mostly the buildings that we work with don't do that. We have a lot of very engaged boards, but some of the larger projects, like if we're working with a real estate company with many, many buildings, they're kind of the client that more typically is interested in getting one of those long-term contracts. So it's something that you can ask your installer when you're interviewing them, figuring out who to select, what kind of offerings they have the best pricing for, that kind of thing. Yeah, I think that mostly answers that question.
Awesome. All right. So just to review our Here Comes Solar model, as I say, we are a project of Solar One, which is a nonprofit organization that does a really good work here in the city. Our mission is to make resiliency a trend in New York. We want to make it that it is inclusive of everyone, and we do so through our programs, which is education, workforce development, and Here Comes Solar, which is us. And we provide site evaluation and solar designs to all buildings who are interested in going solar. So you would basically, we will help you assess how much energy you can produce on top of your roof, or in an area where you have space to put some solar energy. We also do knowledge building. So workshops like this are something that we provide to the public to engage you and also provide you the education and literacy you need to know about solar energy technology and the benefits for you for your residents. We give you a whole consultation in terms of financing incentives. So we are trying to learn and understand the types of incentives that you can take advantage of when you choose to go solar. And we provide you with an installer selection assistance. In this case is that we do requests for proposals and we get bids from different installers that we vetted through a rigorous process and work with us directly. And from there, we can get anywhere from 3 to 5 proposals each time when we do an RFP, which gives our clients a great opportunity to make an informed choice on who they want to go solar with. And we are in the background always assisting you in terms of helping you understand what types of panels are best for your building, or helping you understand the capacity or so that each installer is proposing, the inverters, and the quality of such. We do consumer advocacy during installation. So after you have selected your installer, at Here Comes Solar, we do not just disappear. We are continuously there helping to monitor the installation process, and also post installation. We want to make sure that your system is working well and that you're feeling proud of the choice that you made by going solar. So the process is very simple to get started with us. First, you have to share an address, which is the basic. And from there, we do a remote assessment to just look at your roof and see if there's any shading around it. And we do this with simple technology like Google Maps. But then we would like to receive, at the same time, we would like to receive your owner paid electric bill. And if you're considering for a building, the common area bill for your building is where we start, because from there we can track how much electricity you consume over the course of a year with other technology systems. So we can learn about the electricity, that kilowatt hours that you consume, and how much electricity you will need to offset that bill in terms of the solar energy production. So the first thing, share an address and share a bill. Second, we do the free remote solar assessment, the savings estimate, and consultation, which is what Marigo was sharing when she did her presentation of this workshop, and is basically looking at all of the solar potential plus the incentives and the financing options, so we can give you the rate of return on your investment and how much electricity you will be saving over a 25-year period. I do want to be clear that even though we give you 25-year period, solar energy, the solar panels will probably live longer than the 25-year warranty that the manufacturing company gives you, because solar energy is really good like that. And then we do the on-site assessment. So the next step of the process is that we will send our roof technician and assessor to come to your site and see if we missed any vents or HVACs on top of the roof when we did the remote assessment, so we can accurately make a design for you, and then we can put that for bid to installers. And then we do what is the solicit bids from contractors, support our clients through installation, which is that we make the request for proposals, we get different bids, and as you can see, here is like an example of what we would do the bid comparison form, where we provide you with different, like the different proposals that you received, and that will help you make a choice on who to select as your installer. It could be that some installer propose lower pricing but lower quality panels, and it may be vice versa, and that's how you will ultimately make your choice. And then once you decided to go solar, your building would be ready to generate clean, affordable energy, and we will be a proud participant in your choice. So that's for solar, Here Comes Solar model, because this is a property, solar for property managers, and we have property managers from both sides, affordable housing and market rate. As Marigo said, our affordable housing, our work for affordable housing is free of cost in terms from a savings estimate all the way to installer selection. And when we do market rate building, it is a minimal fee. It's a very nominal that we do charge. That's how we keep our organization and program alive. But at the end of the day, we end up saving you a lot of time and money, because we are basically your advocate, and we're acting like an advocate for you throughout the process. So with that said, we have 12 minutes still remaining of this presentation with questions that you may ask, put them on the chat, or I think we are a small crowd enough that you can feel free to unmute yourself. But in any case, our contacts are right here for Marigo and I as program managers of Solar One that will be guiding you through this process. And if you're interested, if you're an HDFC, please contact UHAB and Emily. So I'll open up the floor for questions.
We have a question in the chat about how many weeks it takes to fully install a solar array, and for buildings under 7 stories, if it uses an elevator or a crane, and if there's a time of year that's better to install.
All right, I can take that. The actual time spent on the roof doing the installation is really the shortest part of this whole process. And so depending on the system size, it can maybe be a week to a few weeks. And in terms of the time of year, as long as it's not completely covered in snow, installers do work throughout the whole year. They won't do certain things on an incredibly rainy day, but they can get a lot done and running electric internally and all that pretty much, or whatever the weather. So if your building has a large enough sort of utility elevator, often the panels can be brought up that way. Some installers prefer to just use a crane and like a pallet full of modules where they put them on the roof that way. Definitely as the buildings get taller, it is more likely that a crane will be used. So it's pretty variable. Like for some projects we've seen for within the same project, an installer propose either a crane, another installer proposes using the elevator. The crane is slightly less disruptive to residents. But yeah, so there's pros and cons of each. Is there anything that should be communicated to those shareholders who live on the top floor? Nothing beyond the fact that there will be construction for a week or two, but it wouldn't influence anything for them in terms of any kind of noise. It's a passive system sitting on the roof, and the inverter is either going to be on the roof or in the basement, but it sort of generates a hum kind of comparable to any other sort of HVAC equipment or anything kind of that size.
Awesome. Feel free to ask questions. You can unmute yourself as well at this point. I think we're a small crowd enough. But are any thoughts that...
I just wanted to add in terms of the fee for service model. So if you're a market rate building, the fee is borne by the owner. So, as the property manager, you're sort of presenting and promoting solar to the building, but we would engage in a contract with the building to receive that fee. And because we're, in either case, whether it's for affordable or for market rate, because we're doing a lot of the work to pre-develop the project, so going on site, taking photographs, doing a shade analysis, all that, it allows the bidders to put forth much more competitive bids because they're receiving basically like a curated package where they can look and they say, okay, we know enough about this project to put forth pricing that we think is going to be pretty accurate without a lot of contingency. And also it's a competitive process. So they come to bid on our projects because they know that it's part of their sales pipeline, but it's sort of an easier lift for them. And so we see pricing come in sometimes between 10 and 20% below the going market rate. So below the rate that you might get even from the same installer if you called them directly as a building and said, give us a proposal.
And I have a comment about the just approach of working with Here Comes Solar's team. I think certainly people can contact installers directly and ask for proposals and get that information, but there is really a true added benefit of working with Here Comes Solar in that the questions that people in the co-ops or the building may have, or that the building owner may have, can be directly addressed in terms of answering the kinds of questions that have come up. Like I'm finding that this really community-based approach of working with the board and the management companies and the shareholders, the way that Solar One approaches it is really a benefit and is a really an added benefit of the solar projects. I think working directly with the installers, installers are wonderful, but in terms of the kinds of questions and addressing the concerns and technical questions, as well as just the overall concerns of building residents. And I think there's really been a wonderful way that I've seen that interaction. People are able to have those direct concerns addressed in working with the team.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. There's one question about our building has recommended to increase insulation. So they need insulation in the building. So are there, modular insulating tiles that can be placed below the ballasted system to both insulate and protect the existing roof just prior to installing a ballasted system? Marigo, do you have any thoughts?
I'm not familiar with any such technology. The ballasted system does not cover, there's a lot of the roof that it does not cover in terms of fire paths, in terms of any space around vents, in terms of inter-row spacing, which can be about a foot. So I don't think it would necessarily be a good approach for increasing insulation in any kind of comprehensive way. But I'm happy to check and follow up with you to see if there is any such technology.
What I do know, thank you, Marigold. What I do know is that the solar energy system would, what it does protect the roof, from just direct sunlight. So it does, keep your roof cooler when it has to be cooler, or it does help you if you have a solar energy system, just a little. It would do more so than if you just had an open roof space. So, but yeah, we're very happy to follow up with you regarding tiling and insulation for, to do both at the same time. But solar does provide some form of protection for your roof. We have 5 more minutes. I don't see any questions, but if we are starting to wrap up, I want to give Emily and Marigold the floor to say some last words about our work that we do at UHAB and also Solar One. And then please contact us if you have any questions moving forward. There's one more question actually. Do you recommend the super remove snow in the winter, or do you recommend minimal interaction with the panels? So energy, actually in the winter, solar energy works really well with in winter times. And the reason is because when it is cold, that's when the panels are the most efficient. When there's a lot of snow, of course, the panels, it would be recommended that, you do some removing of snow. It's not going to be a lot of times, because usually you're not going to get that 1 foot of snow on top of the panels. Usually when you get snow on the panels, as soon as the sun hits the light of the sun hits the panels, the snow will naturally melt, because the panels are either black or dark blue by nature. So that really works really well. And when there is snow on the ground, the reflection from that snow increases the efficiency of that panel because of the light that is bouncing back and forth. So winter and solar energy work really well together. The only issue would be that we don't get as much sunlight during winter times as we would get during summer times. And that's why solar energy would produce more electricity in summer times, but it's not necessarily because it means that the panels are being more efficient, but rather because we get more hours worth of sun.
And we do work with some folks who never go on the roof to remove any snow. They just sort of take it as a little bit of a loss, but the panels being tilted also really helps with the snow sliding off as soon as they get heated up.
Mm-hmm. 3 more minutes. Emily, would you like to say any last thoughts?
We're really proud to be partners of Solar One. I think in terms of the resources that are available to your management companies, to the building owners, and to New Yorkers that are out there, this is a great resource. And so I really recommend that you take advantage of the fact that there is an entity like Solar One and Here Comes Solar Team to be able to work with you and answer questions and walk you through the process towards making an informed decision about solar. I'm happy to answer any questions about the community of affordable co-ops who've adopted solar, and you can contact Jose to get in touch with me. And thank you all for having us.
Thank you. And Marigo, any last thoughts on your end?
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Emily, thanks for those kind words. And yeah, feel free to reach out to us. We'll send a follow-up email with a link to the slides and the recording of the presentation.
Awesome.
And yeah, be well, everybody, and stay safe.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us. It was a great pleasure. And if you are an HDFC, you know you always have services available to you. They do all kinds of range of work, from energy efficiency to board planning, as well as board selection, etc. So it's also a really good entity and very well-established company and organization here in the city that you can take advantage of their service. They work really closely with us, and we do the solar energy site part of the process with them. So stay in touch for all of you who join us, and spread the word about the good news that it is easy to go solar in New York City, and solar it is actually possible. So thank you so much for your time, and it's been a great pleasure sharing this time with you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, bye.